focus our faith, church. You see, I was reading yesterday in this book I've been reading, and it had a profound statement in it. It was talking about this one gentleman, and this man, he walked around, and this guy said he had a robust faith. Because this man, he had a wife who was dying of cancer, and he didn't understand exactly what was going on, but he held on to two twin truths in his life. And the first one was that God is a good God. Mm-hmm. The second one was, no matter what happens, I know that God loves me. Yes. Through it all and to the end of whatever happens. I may not understand why it's happening, but in due time, he will reveal this unto me. You see, this is the kind of faith this man had, that when his wife was going through all of this suffering, yes, at times he got mad at God, but he had to remember that God was a good God. Amen. Therefore, he focused his faith on the true and the living God. Amen. That got him through all this turmoil of depression, anger, and whatever else that came. These twin beliefs got this man through that time of breaking, that time of depression, that time of anger, because he held on to it. I'm not going to sit there and tell you you're not going to get angry. I'm not going to sit there and tell you that you're too blessed to be depressed, because you're going to be depressed. Mm-hmm. You're going to get stressed. Yeah. But the thing is, when it happens, remember that God is still good. Yeah. And that he still loves you no matter what is going on. He can bring you out. Mm-hmm. But your focus has got to stay on the Lord. Well, as I continued to read this thing, it came up with to tell me about these pilots, how pilots fly in airplanes. And, and I didn't realize this, but when they get up in the airplanes and they may be flying at night over water in a storm, or when things get to the point they cannot see and they have no visibility, the pilots focus on what they call the artificial horizon. And somebody asks, what is an artificial horizon? Well, think about it. It's the gauge. You have a gauge that tells you your altitude and what you're at and everything. It tells you your true position in the sky. Well, and when things get dark for them and things get cloudy and they can't see through that windscreen, they have to focus on the gauge. There have been many times where pilots cannot see the runway, but they have to look at the gauge to tell them where it is. You didn't know that if you've been on a plane, and sometimes they can't see up there. Mm-mm. But the whole thing is they're not blind because they're focused on the true horizon, on them gauges. The gauges tell the truth about where the position is and if they're level or not. You see, so they have to focus on that. Well, as I continued reading, the man began to talk about John F. Kennedy Jr. And y'all remember he passed away a few years back, and he was telling a story about what happened. And he was expressing he was angry because JFK Jr. took his wife and his child on a plane ride. But this man was not trained and proficient enough to fly a plane in the conditions that he was in, which was at night, old water, and in a haze. Yeah. So while he was flying, he couldn't tell where he was going. And you see, the thing about this is, when you're disorientated and you don't know where you're at, you don't know what you're really doing. So, at times in an airplane, if you can't see and all your senses have been cut off, you know what your senses begin to do? They begin to scramble. Trying to figure a way to work through this thing. And in that process, it confuses us. And if you go off your feelings, it can be a bad situation. That's why we have to focus on the gauge. Well, he wasn't trained. And when it got dark on him, and when his haze came about and he could not see, his senses began to tell him something. Because at times when you can't tell, when you don't know if you're going up or down, right or left, you don't know what's going on. Instead of trusting the gauges, he trusted his own instinct. And he plunged him and his family to a watery grave. You see, at times, church, when it gets dark, when it gets hazy, when the storm starts to surround you, and you just can't see God like you've seen him before, you need to focus on your gauge, your Jesus gauge. Because your Jesus gauge will let you know your true position. It will let you know if you're flying level with God or not. It'll let you know if you're flying upside down. It'll let you know if you're doing a climb or you're doing a dive. But the thing about it is, if when you're disoriented, when you begin to just trust your feelings, you can get yourself in trouble. A lot of times we forsake our faith for our feelings. And sometimes we mistake our feelings for our faith. You know, some people say, go with your gut instinct. Your gut instinct ain't your faith. What is your faith tell you to do? Right. The faith that you hold in a true and a living God, the one who's brought you through everything. You know, that's the funniest thing about human beings, how we are. No matter how much God brings us through, no matter how much He's brought us through, we still have the audacity to question God. Amen. We still want to question God and ask God, can you really get me through this? But you just forgot about when He just pulled you out. Our faith has to stay focused on the Jesus gauge. We got to focus our faith on that true and the living God. That when things get rough, we may not understand why it happens. Sometimes the question asking of why is irrelevant. You know, sometimes things get so bad, why ain't even an option to ask anymore? You just have to sit there and ride it on out.
That's it.
Because why ain't always going to give, you're always going to get an answer for why something happens. My question ain't why when things get to going bad, it's about when. God, when are you going to get me out of this? Because in times of disorientation, we're going to get to the point we can't see what's really going on. We're going to have people crowding in on us, talking probably bad about us. You're going to have people talking about, well, if you're disoriented, your faith ain't strong. No, it don't mean that. It don't mean that. A lot of people misunderstand how faith works. Faith is that it gets you through these times. And if your faith ain't tested, what is your faith? If you can't test faith, then what do you have? Something you don't know nothing about. And that can't help you. But through these trials in our lives, it gets us prepared for things. And it works on us in different ways to build us up, church. Because a true faith, a healthy faith, is a faith that stays focused on God. No matter what goes on, or what comes or what goes, you stay focused on God. Keep your faith in Jesus. It kind of reminds me of the parables of the sower. When it talks about how he sowed the seed, some fell by the road, some fell on rocks, some fell in thorns, and some fell on good ground. Right. Well, a lot of people I tend to meet in church tend to be the people that fell on the rock. They'll spring up real quick and they're happy about things, but when trouble comes, because their roots didn't take root in the Lord like it needed to, when trouble comes, they fade away. We have too many fading Christians. We've got to teach them that it's not about just getting up and running, it's about digging in before the storm. It's about digging in before the battle begins. You see, I remember watching the story of Band of Brothers, and they went to this place called Bastion over in, I think it's somewhere near Switzerland. They had to spend the winter there. It was very, very harsh conditions. At times these men didn't even have the clothes fit for this thing. But they told them, when they said, what are we going to do out here? The man said, the Germans are coming, you need to dig in. I mean, you're going to have to sit there and wait this thing out till we get here. And that's the same way it is with us, church. We need to be patient in the Lord. You know, sometimes if you really look at your situations, if you look at your situations in life, sometimes things that just happen in a snap. Sometimes it took a while for you to get where you're at. Amen, wrong. It took a while for you to get to that bad situation because you made a lot of bad decisions in the past that kind of worked you up to this moment. You know, it's kind of like our country. A lot of people think we're going to get this thing fixed overnight. No man in the world can fix this stuff overnight because it took a whole lot of years to get us put in the mess we in now. What we need to do as Christians is put our faith and trust in the Lord because He's the only one that can get us out of this mess. Not no Obama, not no Bushes, not no Palin, not no anything, but in a true and living God. That's what we need to look at. Is where's our faith directed? What are we looking at? We need to keep our faith.